So talk about system support and what you guys do.
Of course. So we are a managed IT services company here in Marshfield, and what we do is help small businesses with their technology needs. So these days, that's mainly on the security side. As the criminals get better and better of what seems every minute, we do our best to keep them out and make sure that not only are people protected, but if something does happen, it's not a question of if, it's a question of when, that the tools are there to appropriately clean up after the fact. We've come a long way from just installing networks back in 1989, and now most of the stuff we do is up to the second. We're trying to head things off before they even become a problem, and as I mentioned, it's navigating this nasty world of cybersecurity.
What's life being like in a family work environment?
It's an interesting dynamic. It's funny when you asked me when I attended Marshfield High almost 9-10 years ago.
Yeah.
I would have said, no, I never joined my father's business, yet here I am. And it is a little strange sometimes that it's your coworkers are the people that you have dinner with at Thanksgiving. But so far we're pretty good about work is work and home is home. So when we have going to a concert or something, different things that you do with your parents, we try not to talk about work and not bring things up there, because work absolutely can dominate your life if you're not careful. So at work, my father is Brian, and then at 5 o'clock when I'm done, he's Dad. And then that happens again until 8 a.m. the next day, and then he's Brian. And there's a switch you have to throw in your head for that.
So you guys have gotten really good at separating like work and family.
Yeah, of what hat do you have on at that minute?
Wow.
Of are you Brian, the owner of the company and my partner, where I'm passing work to you, or are you Dad and I'm wondering if you can go fishing on Saturday?
So what's your role in the company?
I wear a lot of hats. So I'm frontline defense for help desk. So if somebody calls in for anything from how do I set a signature in my Outlook all the way to I'm pretty sure that I have a virus, or help the server has crashed and all our data is gone, I handle all of those events. We try and do it in less than 10 minutes. And I also do the back-end business development. What are new security products that we can roll out to stay one step ahead? What's a better way that we can do our work? Everything sales and marketing as well. So for developing of the newsletters and the security tips, that's me, as well as first introduction for people who are looking to make a change.
So you guys are essentially full service IT support from help desk to network. What are some of the businesses that you guys work with?
We run the gamut for a lot of our customers. Smallest customer is 2 people.
Wow.
Largest customer technically has 150 employees, but we work with about 40 people in the seats. So those are usually my largest clients are manufacturing plants. So they obviously have a lot of people who don't touch a computer throughout the course of the day because they're busy actually making things. And then we help a lot of the back-end engineers, office people. So the easiest way to explain what we do is we're an IT department for a company. So we have manufacturing clients, as I mentioned, professional services like attorneys, everything from litigators all the way to real estate is the most common. We have a few medical clients as well, dermatologists, mental health.
Wow. A little bit of everything.
Yeah, there are common things in IT across each thread, and then in each one you get presented with a new challenge of, all right, HIPAA has a slightly different requirement than what the military wants to see for cybersecurity, and then both of them are not the same as how financial data should be protected.
Right.
But at its core are sound security principles.
Yeah. What are some of the current trends in your industry?
Man, where do I start? That's the industry.
What's probably the biggest, the one you're dealing with or you're seeing right now?
The one that everybody asks me about is definitely cybersecurity.
Okay.
I mean, the media does a fantastic job of marketing for me almost every day about, you hear large people getting hacked all the time. Equifax comes to mind as simply the largest.
Yeah.
Target, Home Depot, Acrobat, LinkedIn, MySpace, Adobe.
Anyone, basically.
Exactly. It goes back to that if, not when. So the trend is, how are we going to solve this problem, mainly around passwords, and how do you say who you really are on the internet? So we've started with multi-factor authentication. That's that, you enter the 6 digits that change all the time on your phone. even biometrics, like logging in with your face.
Yeah.
So you're starting to see that with Microsoft, the Microsoft Hello, that to authenticate, you use your face. Apple has that for Apple ID.
Mm-hmm.
And it's solving that problem, and how do you get those pieces out there that they are who we thought they were type of deal. And then, of course, there's going to be the basic defense of how do you make sure somebody's not injecting code somewhere where it's not supposed to be, where it doesn't matter who you say you are. Somebody has the ability to move around a network without needing an identity. We're seeing that picking up more and more as people have figured out where companies like Microsoft and Apple haven't really finished their homework.
Okay. Are you a Windows guy or an Apple guy?
I'm a Windows guy.
Okay.
It's what we see the bulk of in the business world, and it's been what we've been most comfortable with. We find it's most flexible to be able to interact with. If you come up with some business line application, or if you need one made specifically for you, Windows seems to be the easiest platform to work through, and you just need the right guidance for the security part of it.
What should people know when it comes to their devices and security?
When it comes to security, that remembering that these are incredibly complicated devices. I think the operating system for Windows is over 10 billion lines of code.
Wow.
So these are machines that no single person has complete understanding over. And so when it comes to security, it's understanding that there are things that will simply be out of your control. Now, the things that you do have control over, do well.
Okay.
Don't use the same password for everything. I will say this until I'm blue in the face. It will still not be the case. And I will still be saying this probably in 5 years or so.
All right.
But don't use the same password for everything, because if it's popped in one spot, it's very easy to move laterally to a different account. Set up two-factor authentication wherever possible, especially for banking, especially the most important stuff. I don't think a lot of people care if your Netflix account, somebody else is watching, House of Cards or something like that on your account. That's not too bad, but it's bad news bears if it gets into your Rockland Federal account
For
or anything
sure.
like that.
For sure. What separates you guys from other businesses? What's the thing that makes you guys stand above everyone else?
It's always looking for what is it going to take to still be here tomorrow. We've been in business for 30 years for an IT firm, and it is not common for firms to make it this far.
Right.
So if we've been here for 30, we plan to be here for another 30, and then when we've been here for 60, be for another 60. So part of doing that is watching what comes next. So a lot of what we see is that we're watching the desktop start to go away, and strangely enough, we're going back to how it was all set up long ago, where there's a mainframe, except in this case, it's going to be the cloud, and your desktop probably won't be your desktop, but a roaming profile that you can access from any machine. So how do we stay ahead of that?
Yeah.
How do we make sure that as you have this roaming desktop, that ease of access gets better and better? How are we making sure the authentication is clean for it? And then helping translate these complicated pieces to somebody who just wants to sell real estate and frankly does not care that his password should have 8 characters, or this guy's here to make storm drains. He really doesn't want to be bothered with all these bells and whistles that are in his email account. He wants
Just
email.
get me to my stuff.
Exactly. And how do you keep people staying on get me to my stuff while navigating the fact that Microsoft has changed its mind 6 times probably since we sat down?
Yeah. That's what I was going to ask you, where do you see kind of your industry going? Because, technology is constantly ever changing.
We're going to watch the growth of niches. Like
Okay.
I mentioned earlier, with the infinite complexity of these devices we now interact with, and the networks too, you're going to watch a breadth of niches start to pop up. You're going to see stuff that's going to be strictly security. You're going to see people who are strictly infrastructure. What is all the metal and software that this rests on? The security people will be, well, how do you make sure nobody gets into the metal or software that's not supposed to? And then what I think will really start to separate companies is the integrators. And those are people of how do you get these computers to do the work of what would have been 50 people. And I'm starting to see it in some of my customers already. I have a professional services company that has scaled incredibly. They've grown from 3 people to 15 in the span of 2 years.
Wow.
And they run a company that I would have thought a few years ago would have required 30 to 40
Really?
just help desk people for what they do. but they're able to rock it with 5 people because their processes and automation is so rocketed down that what would have been an army of admin people, the computer does it all for them. It's not even the computer, it's the software package behind it. And it's allowed them just explosive growth, everything for their entire funnel, from marketing, onboarding a new client, servicing the client. And that's that integrator role that is going to be probably the most valuable because it actually makes a company money. It's not like insurance where it's defensive. Because a lot of the security, the infrastructure is defensive. Nobody really wants, this is an expense. It doesn't really make me money.
Yeah, it's a protection thing.
Exactly. But an integrator where all of a sudden, hey, you could get a 65% profit margin because instead of struggling to try and hire a new admin, you set this new system up and it just tears away and does the work of 5 admins and does it while you sleep.
What's a typical day like if there is one?
The typical day is there is no day, but I can count on usually a few things. My phone will ring by 9:15, and some issue will have popped up anywhere from some Microsoft update has gone sideways on some machine. A printer has decided it doesn't want to be a printer. A USB connection has decided it doesn't want to work today. It will be something just out of left field. I can always count on 1 or 2 of those a day.
Is the answer to all those just power cycle it and see what happens?
Ironically, it works most of the time. And then it's usually after, luckily, we've trained a lot of customers to do that first. I like those customers, and then they remember to tell me that first. And then usually by the time I get to it, it goes, oh boy, all right, so this one is a little left field. And then from there, for a typical day, usually it's a push of calls, usually through 11:30, stuff that people have kind of noticed in the beginning of the day. And then it starts to peter out. And then usually in the afternoon, I try to be on the road for different installations because I'm hoping most people are doing the same thing for later in the day, either leaving to go get their kids at the end after school or going to their own sales meetings.
What type of installations are you doing?
Migrating everything from a new computer, migrating a server, installing a new piece of equipment, something that requires me to be there in person. Even though 85% of my job can be done remotely, it's difficult to try and walk an office manager through which one is the data jack and which one is the phone jack. After a couple phone calls back and forth, it's just easier if I go there.
Just easier to show up. What's the most common question you get? Is the, hey, this isn't working?
I'll get something where email doesn't work because that's usually people figure that people are they're most sensitive to that.
Oh, yeah.
So, printer, that can lurk for a little bit. A bad update can lurk for a little bit. But Outlook is the bane of my existence. And Outlook's a great product if you use it full-fledged, but for the people we were talking about earlier that just get me to my stuff, webmail makes so much more sense. Go to the website, enter the address, enter the password, and then just send and receive. And the website doesn't break nearly as much, but my friend Outlook stashes data in places it's not supposed to be.
It's just really funny to say my fiance just got an iPhone 11 and she couldn't get her work Outlook on it. So it feels like I just saw this like 2 days ago.
Oh, top of mind. Yep, and I think I dealt with an Outlook thing this morning. It was my first call at 9:15.
So talk about your background. You're from the area, right?
I grew up around the corner. I grew up on Main Street here in Marshfield. I class of 2010 from Marshfield High School. I went to North Carolina State University in Raleigh, North Carolina. Got my Bachelor of Science in Nuclear Engineering.
Wow.
Graduated summa cum laude. I'm an engineer, not an English major. I can't pronounce words.
You did good.
I worked 2 years in D.C. for the Nuclear Regulatory Commission as a reactor systems engineer, where my specialty was nuclear fuel designs. And there were a series of impending changes in the NRC. There were a lot of redundant positions on the wall because there was this Office of New Reactors that didn't really have a lot of new reactors to work on. And a lot of old reactors are getting shut down.
Yeah.
So made a career choice that maybe it's time to do something that I'm pretty sure is going to be here when I go to retire, because I knew some of the people at Pilgrim up here, and the uncertainty when they talked about their future, and especially a lot of them were right at the cusp of retirement. They got whacked by 2008, hadn't completely recovered, and then again they're like, I might lose my job, and I never recovered. I don't really like the look of that.
Yeah.
So I looked My dad had the IT company. He had somebody who left.
Mm-hmm.
He asked if I wanted to come back home. My girlfriend at the time lived back here in Massachusetts.
And
I'm back here now.
did you ever work for your dad prior to that, like during the summers or when you were in school?
Yeah, when I was 13, 14,
Nice.
I'd do just super simple stuff. Like we did a lot of work with the Providence school
So it wasn't
system.
completely your first time. So
No, I had been paid by the company before by picking up printers and carrying them through a school. Perfect work for a 14-year-old, because even if you drop the printer, the packaging is, the box.
the blocking, yeah.
It's designed to be dropped by UPS and FedEx. So,
Right.
14-year-old is, it's okay.
Business is all about partners. So who are the best partners for you?
Best ones are telecommunications companies, phones. They get in, see networks firsthand, and they can be great advocates for, like, they came in someplace, the IT company they had there was unresponsive, and the telecom company themselves was frustrated with it. Commercial insurance agents are another good one,
Really?
because they write a lot of cyber, and part of writing insurance is, what do you do to, I don't want to write this blind policy and write you a policy for $1 million for data protection, and it turns out your password is password 123 and has been for 35 years. But there's usually a series of checks that go through. And if their client doesn't have a company that can do that, I'm a good resource to
They can
bring
go to
in
you.
to do that. Other ones that have been bulks of referrals, a lot of other professional services, accountants, bookkeepers, so people who usually interface with decision makers and owners of the company,
All right.
and touch the IT in some way, shape,
Yeah.
or form that, hey, did you know there's a better way to do this?
So what's the best piece of advice you've been given from a business standpoint?
I've thought a lot about this one. And it was actually something I learned at Pilgrim Power Plant, and it wasn't a piece of business advice.
All right. Go for it.
It's you'll see it on posters all over nuclear plants. It's called STAR. Stop, Think, Act, Review. And it has a lot of I mentioned before we started recording, I'm a huge fan of the Tim Ferriss podcast, Knowledge Project, Jocko Willink's podcast. And if you synthesize a lot of the things that they say, it's summarized pretty well by STAR. Stop, kind of how do you take a step back? That's Jocko Willink's detach and assess. So think. Part of that's all the meditation stuff that Tim talks about, and a lot of other people talk about, of how do you check in, like think, like, because you might start going down a troubleshooting rabbit hole and you kind of missed the easy fix over here. So kind of stopping, thinking about it, then doing it. Because if you sit there or you try and delegate it, you punt it, and that's more extreme ownership part of acting on it, and then reviewing afterwards. And that could be anything from updating a documentation to make sure that somebody else can do it if it comes up again, or hey, was there a cleaner way to do that it didn't have to take 2 hours?
If you could go back in the time machine to the start of your career, what would you tell yourself?
Well, it'd be interesting if I could I'd make 2 stops. So I'd do at the start of system support, and I'd do the start of the NRC. And at the start of system support, it'd be, don't worry so much about the technical portion. So coming out of the NRC, I was definitely very well versed in the technical portions. 4 years of the training, 2 more additional years. I was used to being top of the field in a certain part. And I was always worried about the technical part of, like, oh my goodness, I'm not the best Hyper-V, server expert in the country. And it's kind of, that's okay. You don't have to be this crazy technical part, because you're going to be surprised that the empathetic part of IT is way more important. That talking to a person and kind of helping them navigate this expensive, wacko world is much, much more important than, I don't even know what metric I'd try and use.
I was gonna say there has to be a part of you that has to be almost like on-site, on-call therapist to people, in the sense of that, when their stuff isn't working, sometimes you're getting people in kind of their worst states.
Yeah, there's we've had to fire clients before for some of the ways they've reacted when stuff hasn't gone well. Quick way to get fired by an IT company is to swear at one of their employees, by the way. And then also the same for us. I mean, we're under a lot of stress as well, and there's a lot of kind of gut check for. It goes back to that stop, think, act, review. If I don't say something stupid, because what might be easy for me definitely is difficult for somebody who's like, I'm a dermatologist. I don't care about email passwords. But for going back to the original question, remind me again. I'm sorry.
It was the time machine.
Time machine.
You were going to make 2 stops.
Yeah. So the technical portion for starting at system support, and then a piece of advice too will be marketing beats technology anytime, every time. Remember, it's the VCR, not the Betamax tape. And I'd have a fun time trying to figure that one out after I was shocked by being visited by myself. And then at the start of my NRC career, I'd say, like, don't be so stubborn.
Okay.
There was a lot of, I'm going to do it this way, kind of acting like I had to prove something to somebody, that I had to kind of prove myself and be all this crazy competition, and that we often don't like to think a statistic is going to apply to ourselves. And what's that statistic? I think it's 18% of people actually stay in the career that their degree is in.
I think so. And I think I think we're not too far apart in age, and I think a lot of people in our similar age are consistently changing their careers or not clearly using their majors.
Yeah, and it's not that I don't use parts of that engineering degree. I do every day. I mean, defense in depth, and I don't use like time series for neutronics anymore. No point, but defense in depth is a concept, absolutely. Integrated systems analysis, absolutely.
Yeah, sure.
But being stubborn and having to play that game of, you'd be surprised how many statistics you don't think apply to you for being special, and like, that regression to the mean is real, and then from that, play defensively appropriately.
If people want to learn more about your business, where should they go?
Yeah, you can check out our website, www.systemsupport.com. That's one S between the two. We got a ton of blog articles up there that I've written, and we've also used content from some other industry giants as well. There's a lot of reports up there too for, I know one question I get asked all the time is, how much do you pay for this type of stuff? Because you'll be surprised, obviously your cousin who does it for you for free isn't going to charge you a normal rate, but at the same time, we're not plumbers and we're not like jacks of all trades. So if you want to get a gambit of the price, there's guides up there for that. And then you can always give us a call at 781-837-0069.
Great. Well, thanks for doing this, Will. I appreciate you.
Jonathan, thanks for having me out.
All right. Cool.